I still remember the hum of the highway that night. Low, steady, and endless. The kind of sound that makes your thoughts drift until they start whispering back at you. My windshield was streaked with rain, the wipers beating in slow, tired rhythm. I'd been driving for hours through nothing but fog and pine, a pale gray world where even the stars seemed afraid to shine. When I finally saw the flicker of a neon sign in the distance, I thought it was a blessing, a rest stop, a place to stretch, to breathe, to be around light again. But the moment I pulled in, I noticed how wrong the silence felt, like the air itself was holding its breath. The vending machines hummed softly, lights flickering in tired rhythm, and the smell of rain soaked into the concrete. That's when I realized every car parked there was empty, doors open, engines cold, and somewhere beyond the restroom door, I heard someone humming the same rhythm as my wipers. That's when I saw it. The road stretched empty. Night pressed heavy against the asphalt. Fog rolled low, curling around the edges of the rest stop. I stopped. A solitary building leaned against the darkness. Windows dark, doors locked, except one light flickered, pale, hesitant, somewhere near the corner of the lot. I thought it was a security light, maybe motion activated. I turned my back. The hum of the highway shrank. Silence replaced it, thick and sudden. When I looked again, the light had moved closer, closer than it should have been. I stepped toward the building. My boots scuffed gravel. It crunched underfoot like dry bones. The light blinked once, then twice. Not a time pulse, I realized. It waited for me. I tried to ignore it, focus on the fog curling around the faded signage. But every time I blinked, every time I dared to glance away, it was nearer, closer than before, closer than was possible. I stopped moving, breath shallow. Rustling of leaves around the lot seemed louder, sharper. I could feel it through the soles of my shoes. The air thickened, electric, patient. I looked away again, counted silently. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. The light shifted, just a little, but enough. Enough to make the shadows behind the building feel alive. I whispered to myself, though the words felt meaningless. Alone, alone. Footsteps? I wasn't moving. No one there. But still, the gravel seemed disturbed, soft echoes where none should be. The light's flicker became a pulse, almost breathing. I watched, rigid, as the pale glow traced the edge of the building. It was patient, waiting. I told myself I was imagining it, that the fog played tricks, that tired eyes and the hum of the distant highway made shapes where there were none. And yet, every glance away drew it closer. Every blink, every breath shortened the distance. I wanted to run, but the asphalt seemed sticky, the fog heavier. Even the air held me, quiet and still. A car passed far down the road, its lights weak against the night. For a moment, the world seemed normal, but then the light moved again. I crouched behind the corner of the building, heart loud in my ears. A strange stillness pressed against my skin. It didn't sweep the lot like a normal light. It didn't chase like headlights. It simply waited, and it knew where I was. I dared to peek. The pale glow lingered closer than before. I swallowed hard. The cold air stung my throat. A shadow stretched across the cracked pavement. My shadow, and yet the light traced not just me, but a space ahead. It was always one step closer than comfort allowed. I wanted to look away forever. I wanted to close my eyes and pretend it wasn't there. But even in darkness behind closed lids, it was near. Finally, I moved, not toward the light, not toward the building. Away, the hum faded. Gravel no longer crunched. The fog swallowed the lot again. And in the silence, I could still feel it. Waiting, patient, not at the corner, not across the lot. Right behind me, the lot was quiet, empty, except for the mist curling along the asphalt. Night had a weight to it, damp and thick. A semi sat idling near the far edge, headlights pale, fading into the fog. No one in the cab. I walked closer, gravel pressed under my shoes, sharp underfoot. The air smelled faintly of diesel and wet metal. The radio whispered, soft, low, words I barely recognized. Names, rolling slowly across the static. Then mine. My name, spoken somewhere between the hiss of the fog and the hum of the engine. I froze. The hum of the idling truck mingled with a pulse in my chest. I wanted to step back. I wanted to vanish into the mist. A CB mic clicked, alone in the quiet. It sounded too deliberate. A pause. A static breath. You almost here? The voice was gravelly, thin as dry leaves. It didn't belong. It shouldn't exist. I stared through the windshield. Empty seats. Shadows curling in the corners of the cab. No one to speak. No one to listen. And yet, the voice persisted. The fog moved differently here. Around the wheels, over the hood, across the empty lot. It seemed to fold toward the truck, pulling me closer without moving me. I touched the cold metal of the door. Rough, slightly damp. It vibrated with the engine, or maybe with the tension. The radio hissed again. My name, longer this time, drawn, soft, as if the truck remembered me. I stepped back. Gravel crunched underfoot, echoing like distant footsteps. The cab's interior reflected faintly in the windshield. Shapes that weren't there before shifted in the dim glow. The CB clicked once more. A pause. Then another soft whispered. You almost here? Silence followed. Heavy, thick, settling in my ears. In the air around my shoulders. I could feel the truck watching, even with no one inside. The fog pressed against my face. Cold, wet, smelling faintly of oil and earth. The lights of the truck never blinked, never dimmed. But their glow seemed closer now. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I couldn't look away. A faint wind shifted, carrying gravel and rustling leaves. The lot's edges blurred. The truck waited, and the voice lingered, soft, patient, endless. I walked backward, slowly, breath shallow, hands cold. The engine hummed with quiet insistence. The radio whispered one last time. My name. Then the fog swallowed it, and the lot returned to nothing. The restroom smelled of damp tile and stale air. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly above. My footsteps echoed alone against the cracked floor. I washed my hands, water cold, splashing over skin that felt too warm. The mirror fogged from my breath. And then I saw it, a pale shape in the reflection, not behind me, not in the empty stalls. It was in the background of the mirror, a faint window, fogged over just above the stall door. A figure stood there, watching. I turned slowly. The stall was empty. No window, no figure. My pulse stuttered in my chest. Water dripped into the sink, echoing in the silence like a slow, uneven drum. I blinked. The figure remained in the mirror, its outline pale, almost glowing against the dull tile. Still, silent, waiting. The air felt thicker. Cold moisture clung to my arms. Even the hum of the fluorescent light seemed muted. I leaned closer. The reflection showed the fog window more clearly now. Shapes, shadows, curling behind it, watching, patient. I stepped back. The tiles were slick underfoot. I felt the dampness through my shoes. And yet, the figure didn't move. I glanced around the room. Empty. Just the scent of damp tile and the hum overhead, and my own shallow breath. I turned to the mirror again. The figure had not moved. The window, real only in the reflection, seemed to breathe. My hands shook. Water ran over them, spilling onto the counter. I wanted to speak, say anything, but my voice caught in my throat. The reflection was patient, not threatening, not alive in any normal sense. Just there, waiting for recognition. I stepped away from the sink. The mirror held the figure, the window, the fog space between. I moved toward the door, slow, breath shallow, footsteps soft against tile. I dared one last look. The figure's outline flickered. Then it was gone. No window, no shadow. Silence filled the room, cold and empty. Only the drip of water and the hum of the lights remained. I left. The restroom door creaked closed behind me. Outside, the lot stretched in the fog. The night swallowed everything. And in the quiet, I could still see it. In the mirror, waiting, the lot was quiet. Night pressed against the asphalt like wet cloth. Inside, the vending machine hummed softly. Its metal body glinted under the pale ceiling light. the smell of old coffee beans mixed with a faint scent of dust. I approached. Coins rattled in my hand. Cold and heavy, they pressed against my palm. I dropped one into the slot. The machine hummed louder. Mechanical, steady, between the clicks and whirs. A faint static began to hiss. I frowned. The hum changed. Words began to surface from the white noise. Fragments, broken voices, a whisper of someone calling, long gone. Help, lost, highway, don't leave alone. I froze. The coins in my pocket felt heavier. The air pressed damp against my skin. I pressed another. The hum grew warmer, vibrating to the tiles underfoot. Static poured words again. Stuck. No, wait. Gone, don't follow. I stepped back. The machine's light flickered slightly. My reflection in the glass looked wrong. Paler, older. The voices weren't real. Not entirely. They were fragments. Memories. Warnings. I leaned closer, unable to resist. Static wrapped around me. A faint odor of burnt sugar and cold metal filled my nose. The words became clearer. Trapped, see me help. 17 dark alone. I shivered. The hum now vibrated through the air itself. The lot outside pressed against the walls. Fog curling in faint tendrils under the windows. Another coin. The hiss turned to whispers. The voices became urgent, layered, as if the machine remembered each traveler who vanished here over the years. I swallowed hard. My fingers tingled. The metal of the machine cold, yet alive beneath my touch. I wanted to step back. I wanted to run, but the words wrapped around me, insistent. Don't leave, wait, return. I dropped the last coin. The machine fell silent. Only the faint hum remained, steady and calm. The shadows in the corners stretched, hesitant, waiting. I breathed in, cold and shallow. The smell of coffee lingered, but the voices were gone. I left the lot. The fog pressed against my coat. The night swallowed everything. And in the quiet, I could still hear the faintest static, whispering from somewhere deep inside the machine. Rain dripped from the eaves. The lot was slick, smelling of wet asphalt and cold metal. I opened the car door. A note clung to my windshield. Rain smeared, curling at the edges. In careful, looping handwriting, it read, "Do not look in the rearview mirror." I hesitated. The words pressed against me, quiet, insistent. The fog hung low over the road ahead, thick and white. The engine hummed, soft, even, vibrating through my chest. I gripped the wheel. The leather was cold and damp beneath my fingers. I started forward. The headlights barely cut through the fog. Everything beyond a few feet blurred into pale gray. A low hum began from the rear-view mirror. Soft, almost inaudible. I didn't move my eyes. I didn't want to. The rain slid down the windshield in heavy streaks. Wipers swept methodically, pushing droplets aside. But the note remained, folded and damp, pressed under the blade. I breathed slowly, air sharp with wet, earthy scent. The hum grew, threading itself through the vibration of the car. Patient, waiting. The road narrowed. Fog swallowed the lines and edges. Trees loomed like ghosts. Dark shapes barely glimpsed through the mist. I resisted looking. Every instinct screamed at me. The hum deepened, a resonance against my ribs, my ears, my teeth. The note's words repeated in my mind. Do not look. Do not look. Shadows shifted at the edge of the headlights. The wet asphalt reflected them faintly, stretching into shapes that weren't there. I kept my eyes forward. Soft raindrops tapped against the roof. The world was muted, save for the hum, and the fog, and my breath, shallow, hot against cold air. I glanced down at the note, fingers brushing the edge of it. The ink had bled, letters smudged. The warning seemed alive, pulsing slightly in the dim light. The hum in the rear view deepened again. It sounded almost like whispering. A single phrase, too low to understand. My name, perhaps, or not. I kept moving forward. The tunnel of fog swallowed the lines of the road. Headlights cut through the mist only a few feet ahead. Everything behind, waiting. The car shivered on wet asphalt, wipers swishing, rain hissing softly against glass. The world contracted to a narrow strip of wet light. I wanted to look. I wanted to see what waited in the mirror, but the note, damp and curling, held my gaze. Do not look. Slowly the hum faded. The road stretched on, pale and featureless. Rain slick and silent. I exhaled. Air heavy, tasting of wet metal and earth. Hands cold on the wheel. The note remained under the wiper, blank in the dim light now. And yet, I could feel it. Behind me, patient, waiting. Rain streaked the lot. Lights reflected off wet asphalt, pale and shaking. The ice machine hummed softly. Steady, alone in the corner, I noticed her then. A small figure, drenched, standing beside it. Yellow coat plastered her frame. She clutched something to her chest. A stuffed animal, limp and sodden. Water ran from the hood onto the tiles at her feet. She looked at me, eyes wide. Still, too calm for the storm around her. Then she spoke that a voice came. Soft, almost melodic. Can you give me a ride? But her lips never moved. The words echoed from the overhead speaker, crackling, distant that I stepped closer, boots slipping slightly on the wet asphalt. The smell of rain and cold fabric clung to the air. She tilted her head, small shoulders shivering. The hum of the ice machine mingled with the faint static in the speaker. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. The world contracted to her figure, pale and dripping, alone in the corner. She didn't blink, didn't breathe visibly. I wanted to reach out, to offer warmth, but the distance between intention and action stretched, thick with unease. The speaker crackled again. Can you give me a ride? The words carried over the hum, soft but insistent. I noticed the wet asphalt beneath her feet, tiny footprints trailing toward the ice machine. Yet, when I blinked, they seemed to vanish. Her stuffed animal, pressed tightly to her chest. The seams worn, soaking wet. The scent of damp cotton mixed with the metallic tang of the lot. I swallowed. A faint wind rustled across the roof. The rain slowed, dripping from the eaves. The lot was quiet, except for the hum and the crackling speaker. I stepped back. The reflection of the lights shimmered in puddles. Shadows stretched along the walls, reaching but never touching. She didn't move, her eyes fixed on me. The voice, now barely a whisper, repeated, Can you give me a ride? I wanted to leave, but my feet felt heavy, as if the wet asphalt, the hum, the fog, had weight beyond gravity. I glanced at the ice machine. The fluorescent light above flickered faintly. Her coat glowed briefly in the dim, yellow and impossible. I turned my head slightly. The words from the speaker echoed again, soft, patient, waiting. I exhaled, breath hot and wet against cold air, hands cold on my sides. Slowly, I backed toward the car, each step measured, careful, eyes never leaving her. The lot stretched around me, empty and silent. Even the hum seemed distant now, receding into shadow. The girl stayed by the ice machine, yellow coat plastered, stuffed animal held tight. I slid into the driver's seat. Door closed, shutting out the rain. Fog pressed against the windows. Headlights cut through nothing but mist. And when I started to move, I could still hear her. Soft, faint, carried in static. Patiently asking, Can you give me a ride? The restroom smelled of damp tile and old disinfectant. Fluorescent lights hummed above, soft and unsteady. My footsteps echoed across the floor. A stall caught my eye. See! The door was locked. A faint scratch in the wood whispered beneath the hum of the lights. Curiosity pressed me closer. Fingers traced the edges of the door. Cold, rough. A faint metallic scent lingered in the air. I leaned closer. Marks carved deep into the wood caught the dim light. Initials, dates, times, and one word, repeated over and over. Staying. I traced a finger over the carved letters. Rough grooves under my skin. The air tasted metallic, heavy with dust and something older. My breath quickened. The hum of the lights felt louder now. The echoes of my own footsteps seemed sharper, uneven. I pushed the door. It moved slowly, resisting, creaking. Inside, the stall was empty, but the carvings filled every surface. Lines of names and time stacked over each other. A record of someone who had lingered here, longer than they should. I stepped in, air damp and cold. clinging to my clothes. The faint smell of rusted metal and wetwood pressed against my nose. I ran my fingers across more carvings. Each ended the same. Staying. A word that felt alive, heavy, patient. I shivered. The light above flickered. Shadows curled into the corners, long and hesitant. The silence pressed against me. I wanted to leave. I wanted to close the door behind me. But something held me. Curiosity, perhaps, or the weight of the carvings themselves. A faint hum rose in the air, not the fluorescent lights. Something low, vibrating through the tile beneath my shoes, like the echoes of the people who had been here. I traced one last line. The initials blurred under my fingers, dates spanning years, each ending the same. Staying. I stepped back. The door felt heavier as I closed it. A soft click, final. The restroom returned to its pale light. The hum softened. Only the faint scent of damp tile and wood lingered. And in that quiet, I felt it. The word pressed against my chest. Staying. Patient. Watching. Rain slicked asphalt stretched beneath the flickering canopy lights. The air smelled of gasoline and wet metal. Distant thunder rolled low, soft, beneath the hum of the pumps. I moved slowly. Footsteps damp, echoing faintly. Every motion mirrored in the puddles. Yet something else mimicked me too. A shadow shifted beneath the lights. Not in perfect time, but a heartbeat behind. When I raised my hand, it lifted its own a moment later. I froze. The air tightened around my chest. Electric in the scent of rain and ozone. A flash of lightning lit the lot. The shadow leapt closer, just a little, enough to make the distance feel impossible. I swallowed. The hum of the pumps vibrated through the soles of my shoes. Cold metal pressed against my fingers as I leaned on the nearest pump. The shadow remained beneath the pale glow. Eyes, if it had them, I couldn't see. Only the outline, thin, slightly distorted, tracing my movements. I stepped back. Gravel shifted underfoot, soft and wet. Each motion it copied, delayed, patient. Another flash, closer still. I could feel the wet, cold air brush against my skin differently now. Heavier, watching. I wanted to call out, but the hum and the static from the overhead lights swallowed my voice. No sound but the drip of rain from the canopy. The shadow crouched briefly, or maybe I imagined it. Shape stretched, condensed, uncertain in the flickering light. I moved again, cautious, hand brushing the cold metal of the pump. The air smelled of fuel and wet earth. My breath came in shallow puffs. The shadow mirrored me perfectly, just slightly behind. Every twitch, every hesitation, every blink. I could see in the puddles, stretched thin, moving through reflections. Lightning flashed once more. It was closer, closer than the reflection should allow. I didn't run. I couldn't. Feet felt stuck, weight pressing down with the hum and the rain. The canopy light flickered again, casting long, restless shadows. The watcher waited beneath them, patient, mimicking. Finally, the lot returned to its dull glow. The shadow lingered, just at the edge of perception. The hum softened. The rain thinned. I exhaled, air sharp and cold, hands wet against the metal pump. The world felt empty, yet the presence remained. I turned toward the building. Soft footsteps carried through puddles. The shadow stayed beneath the lights. And in the quiet, I could still feel it. Watching, patient, waiting. Rain pressed against the asphalt. The lot smelled of wet metal and oil. Lights flickered overhead, pale and hesitant. I noticed it first in the vending alcove, a silk leather journal, corners curling with damp, the smell of wet leather sharp against the misty air. I picked it up. Water seeped through my gloves. Pages stiff, warped, fragile under my fingers. I opened it, handwriting tight, hurried, each line moving with me. The first entry matched my steps to the lot. My breath, shallow, the hum of the lights above, even the soft patter of rain against the hood. I turned the page. A description of the ice machine, of a figure in a yellow coat, standing and waiting that I froze. My fingers trembled. The journal traced my own motions, my gaze, my hesitation. Each word felt like a shadow pressing against my chest. Not observation, prediction. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The hum of the lot vibrated through the soles of my shoes. The fog pressed closer, damp against my skin. Another entry, the rear view mirror. A note warning not to look. I could feel the hum rising in my ears. The words echoed, patient, familiar. I traced the writing with trembling fingers. The leather soaked, smelling faintly of rain and iron. Names, dates, places, each vanished into one pattern. My movements mirrored, step for step. The journal shivered slightly in my grip. A soft hum, almost alive. I could feel the weight of its memory, heavy, patient. I read on, descriptions of vending machines humming. Coins dropped, voices rising from static. Shadows under gas canopy lights. Flickering with each thunderclap. I felt the rain drip from my hood faster, colder, against my neck. Each page ended the same way. Observation. Warning. Inevitability. I shivered. The lot felt alive with echoes of the driver who had written this. Alone, patient, trapped in a loop, I was now walking myself. I closed the journal briefly. Fingers slick, heart hammering, air sharp with damp and metal. I opened it again. The next line described my hesitation, my glance over the shoulder. It mentioned the shadow beneath the gas pumps. Closer, patient, waiting. I realized then, not just a journal, not just a record. It was the map of a fate already lived. The rain softened, but the hum did not. Footsteps seemed heavier, slower. The fog thickened around the lot. I felt the inevitability settle in my chest. Each movement I made already written in ink. Each hesitation mirrored from someone long gone. The pages whispered, soaked and alive. Static from a vending machine seemed to echo the journal's words. A rhythm, slow and fatal. I closed it finally. Leather damp, pages curling against themselves. The lot was quiet again, except for the hum of lights and a faint, lingering smell of rain-soaked ink. And in the silence, I could feel it, watching, waiting. Every step already written. Every choice already made. Fog pressed against the windshield. The highway stretched ahead. Pale lines barely visible. Rain tapped softly, cool and insistent, against the roof. I turned the dial on the car radio. A low hum greeted me, static layering over itself. And then voices, screams fragmented, twisting through the static. Names I didn't recognize, and one I did. A whisper followed. Soft, patient, don't stop at the next rest stop. I glanced up. Mist clung to the highway like smoke. Signs blurred in the wet glow of headlights. But I already had. The familiar lights of the lot pressed against the fog. Empty cars gleaming under pale bulbs. I gripped the wheel, leather cold under my fingers. The hum of the radio pressed through the air vents, vibrating my chest. Static rose again. A faint, distorted voice repeating, slower now. Names, places, time, warnings embedded in the hiss. I wanted to turn, to leave, but the road behind stretched endless, fog-bound. The rain slid down the glass. Wipers swished, sweeping away droplets only to reveal more. I could feel the chill of wet metal, the soft vibrations through the pedals. Another whisper, closer, don't stop. But the echo lingered in the static, already too late. I exhaled, air damp, tasting faintly of gasoline and rain. The hum of the lot behind me pressed like a weight against my shoulders. I glanced at the rear view. Nothing, yet the radio hummed, alive with something unseen. Static crawling, voices layered over it. The highway stretched on, narrow and pale. Fog curling at the edges of my headlights. I could feel each drop of rain against my skin, cold, wet, insistent. Another flash of clarity through the static. The whispers sharpened. Don't stop, don't stop. But my tires already pressed against the lot's wet asphalt. I pressed my fingers harder against the wheel. Rain-slicked mirrors reflected faint shapes. Shadows flickered under the lot's dim lights. The static rose to a low howl. Names screamed across the frequencies. Echoes of travelers long gone. I swallowed. The hum pressed into my ears. The fog, the lights, the damp asphalt, all alive with waiting. I couldn't move fast. The world seemed slowed, heavy with the static and whispering. Every instinct told me to leave, but the rest stop had already claimed me. I exhaled slowly, hands slick, leather cold. The radio whispered again, soft, patient, inevitable. Don't stop. And in the quiet that followed, only the hum remained. The fog pressed against the car. The night stretched endless. And the whisper lingered, waiting. The lot was quiet. Rain slicked asphalt reflected pale, flickering lights. The air smelled faintly of wet rubber and metal. A parked sedan caught my eye. Its windows steamed, fog from inside. A figure slumped over the steering wheel. I slowed my steps, boots wet against the asphalt. The hum of the lot pressed softly around me. At first, I thought it was asleep, head tilted, hands resting limp on the wheel, clothing damp, pressed against the frame of the seat. I blinked, and the eyes opened, not slow, not blurred, exactly in time with mine, mirrored perfectly. A shiver ran through me. Cold air pressed against my neck. Rain pattered lightly on the roof. I stepped closer, fingers brushing wet asphalt. The scent of damp upholstery and rain clung to the air. The eyes stayed locked on mine, unblinking between blinks, a shadow of intent behind them. I could feel the stillness pressing around me. The hum of the lights thickened, vibrating softly through the soles of my shoes. Every instinct whispered to move away. I didn't. Curiosity and unease tangled together, heavy. I blinked again. The figure's eyes followed, always a fraction behind, always synchronized. Breath shallow, chest tight. The air smelled metallic now, like wet iron. I leaned slightly closer. The hum of the lot shifted. Puddles reflected the pale light in broken shards. The shadow of the figure stretched across them. The blink continued. 1, 2, 3, always in step with mine. I could feel the inevitability pressing in. I wanted to look away, to step back, but the eyes waited. Patient, insistent. I exhaled slowly. Air damp, tasting faintly of rain and asphalt. Boots slick underfoot. The hum softened, yet remained. Time seemed to stretch. The figure slumped, yet the eyes never left. Blink, blink, always mirrored. I stepped back finally. Hands wet against my coat. The shadow retreated only slightly. The figure slumped again, still waiting. And in the quiet, even with the lot returning to its dull hum, I could feel it, watching, patient, synchronized with me. Fog pressed against the windshield. The highway stretched pale and endless beneath the dim glow of the headlights. Rain slicked asphalt whispered under my tires. I thought I was leaving, moving forward. The rest stopped shrinking behind me. But then it appeared again. Same lot, same lights, familiar asphalt gleaming wet beneath the canopy. I blinked. Mist curled over the lines of the highway. The hum of the pumps carried over, soft and insistent. I drove past. Horizon swallowed the lot. Fog thickened, damp and close. And there it was. Again, mile after mile, the same lights, the same asphalt. Every few minutes, a repetition, quiet and patient. I pressed the wheel tighter. Leather slick with rain. The scent of wet metal and oil clung to the air. My breath fogged the windows. I tried to count miles. Landmarks blurred into one another. Signs twisted in the fog. The world looped, slow and endless. Each passed the fog pressed thicker, cold against my cheeks. A damp weight in the air. The lot glimmered under pale lights. Still, silent, waiting. The hum of fluorescent bulbs soft but constant. I slowed. Curiosity and dread tangled together, heavy. The tires pressed wet asphalt. The rain whispered against the windshield. I realized then. Time stretched, folded, repeating. Every pass identical, yet heavier. The fog denser. The air thicker. I exhaled slowly, breath warm against the cold. The world had narrowed to headlights and asphalt, fog, and repeating lights. I tried to leave, to move forward, but every turn led back. Every mile the same. The hum of the lot reached me even before I saw it. Familiar and patient. I could smell rain-soaked asphalt, faint metal, oil. I pressed my fingers to the wheel, hands wet, heart heavy, the fog curling against the windshield like a living thing. The lot appeared again, lights flickering softly, reflections in puddles dancing faintly. Time pressed in, slow and unyielding. I exhaled. Acceptance pressed against me, damp and cold. No escape, no choice but the endless loop. And in the quiet, the fog thickened further. Every repetition heavier, closer. I drove again and again, and the rest stop waited. Patient, silent, unchanging. The restroom smelled of damp tile and disinfectant. Air cold, clinging to my skin. Fluorescent lights hummed softly above, uneven, flickering. I approached the mirror. Glass fog from humidity. Fingers brushed the surface. Cold, deeper than tile. A chill that pressed against my bones. I wiped the circle with the back of my hand. Reflected back, not just me. Another version. Pale, still, mouthing words silently. Stay out of the car. I blinked. The words didn't move with my own lips. The reflection lingered, insistent. Cold glass pressed against my fingertips. A metallic scent lingered, faint, like rain on asphalt. I stepped closer. Fog curling along the edges. My breath shallow, pressed against the pane. The reflected version mirrored my movements, almost. Every twitch offset, deliberate, patient. I pulled my hand back. The chill remained. The hum of the lights seemed louder, vibrating softly through the tile. I leaned closer again. The mirror's surface smooth, unnaturally still. The other me, watching, mouthing the same warning, wordless yet clear. I wanted to turn away, to escape the reflection, but my own eyes stayed locked on it. Fingers brushed the sink edge, cold metal under wet fingertips. The mirror's surface seemed to pulse, faintly, with static in the air. A subtle vibration, almost like breath. The warning repeated silently. Stay out of the car. The words pressing through, patient, certain. I exhaled slowly, air damp and cold against my cheeks. The tile hummed beneath my boots. The reflection's eyes, pleading. I stepped back. The fluorescent hum softened. The air smelled faintly of wet tile and metal. Yet the image lingered, patient, waiting. I felt the weight of it, a choice I could already sense. The reflection fading, yet leaving a chill in its place. A warning too late, or already too soon. I turned away from the mirror, hands slick against my coat, boots soft against wet tile. The hum of lights fading into silence. And in that quiet, the words lingered. Stay out of the car. Patient. I could feel the regret pressing against me, damp and cold. The hallway smelled faintly of bleach and damp metal. Lights flickered overhead, pale and hesitant. My boots pressed softly against the linoleum, echoing faintly in the stillness. A door caught my eye. Small letters, painted white. Staff only. The handle cold under my hand. I paused, rustling from inside, or maybe my own breath. The air smelled faintly of fabric, warm and musty. I twisted the handle. Locked. A soft click echoed as if the door knew I had tried. The hum of fluorescent lights pressed against my ears. I leaned closer, peering through the small crack at the edge. Uniforms hung neatly inside, rows and rows, colors muted in pale light. The name tags caught my eye. All the same. My own name, stitched or printed, exact, repeated endlessly across the rows. I stepped back, heart pressing in my chest. Leather coat damp against my skin. The hum of the hallway louder now. Curiosity pressed me forward again. I imagined opening the door. Fingers brushed the cold metal once more. The air smelled faintly of wet fabric and iron. I imagined stepping inside. The rows of uniforms stretching farther than the hallway itself. Each one labeled with my name, identical, waiting. I shivered, cold pressing against my neck. The hallway silent, but alive. Something patient lurking just beyond vision. I imagined the rustle as I brushed past. The faint swish of fabric, still and deliberate. Each uniform perfectly arranged, waiting. I pressed my fingers against the doorframe. Leather damp under my touch. The hum seemed to vibrate through the walls. I wanted to leave, yet curiosity rooted me in place. The hallway stretched, dim and narrow. The door silent, locked. I imagined reaching inside. Fingers brushing the sleeves of fabric. Cold, damp, familiar. Every row bearing my name. Waiting. I stepped back again. Heart hammering. Boots wet against linoleum. The faint metallic scent of the air pressed against my nose. The door remained locked. Uniforms pressed silently behind it. Rows of my name, patient, waiting. I exhaled slowly. Cold air fogging in front of me. And in the quiet, I felt it. The hallway stretching longer, emptier. Isolation pressing against me. I could hear my own heartbeat. Soft footsteps echoing in the stillness. And the locked door, patient, waiting. Fog curled along the edges of the highway. Damp asphalt glistened under the pale glow of my headlights. The air smelled faintly of wet earth and rain-soaked grass. I noticed them first in the corner of my vision, a circle of wildflowers, impossibly bright against a burnt patch of asphalt, petals trembling lightly in the damp air. I stepped closer, boots soft against the wet shoulder. The scent of flowers mingled with smoke, sharp and sweet. Fingers brushed the petals. A faint hum rose, soft, like a recording of distant voices or laughter long gone. I knelt beside the circle, every bloom identical, perfect, uniform in color, in shape, in the subtle vibration beneath my fingertips. The burnt asphalt in the center drew my eyes, blackened, cracked, silent. No footprints, no signs of life that I exhaled slowly. Air damp and cool against my skin. The hum persisted, growing slightly as I touched more petals. I felt wonder first. Delicate petals beneath my fingers. Colors too vivid, too alive against a gray highway. But the hum carried something else. A faint sorrow. Echoes of something lost. Voices muted. Trapped beneath the vibration of petals. I leaned closer. Rain dripping from my hair onto the flowers. Cold, wet droplets pressing into the soil, into the air. The hum became layered. Laughter, whispers, sighs, all beneath the soft vibration. I tried to stand. The circle seemed to expand beneath my gaze. Impossible perfection, enclosing the burnt asphalt like a frame. I traced a finger along the edge. The petals quivered under the touch. The air smelled damp, sweet, metallic. The hum persisted, patient, insistent. Sorrow pressed against me. Not loud, not sudden, quiet, damp, and unrelenting. The memory of something broken, trapped, waiting beneath the asphalt and petals. I exhaled again. The wind carried faint whispers through the grass. Boots pressing against wet soil, soles slick. The circle hummed, soft and mournful. I turned slowly away. The flowers glimmered in the pale light of headlights, every petal vibrating slightly, as though the road itself was remembering. And in that quiet, the burnt patch remained, hollow and dark. The circle patient, waiting. The hum lingering, soft, sorrowful, as if the world itself had whispered its regret. The fog pressed low across the asphalt. Lights in the canopy flickered, pale and hesitant. The air smelled damp, of rain on tar and wet earth. I walked past the vending alcoves, rustling paper beneath my boots. The hum of fluorescent bulbs pressed softly against the air. A bulletin board caught my eye, pins holding up notices, faded flyers curling at the edges. Among them, an old photograph. I picked it up carefully, fingers cold against the slick paper. The photograph trembled slightly in my grip, and then I saw it, my own face younger, staring out, clothes unfamiliar, hair different, yet unmistakably me. Behind that version of myself, fog rolled in, same thick gray, curling along the asphalt, same soft hum of lights. I swallowed, air damp against my tongue, heart pressing in my chest, steady and heavy. I traced the edge of the photograph, fingers damp from condensation. The bulletin board smelled faintly of wood polish, paper, and rain. I stepped back, trying to breathe normally, yet the air felt heavier, every exhale visible in the cold, the fog curling with each breath. The photograph seemed alive. The younger me, watching, waiting, the fog moving just as it does outside the window. Shock pressed against me first. I shook slightly, boots soft against the wet floor. The hum of the rest stop seemed louder, resonating to the tile beneath my feet. I turned toward the doorway. Fog thickened along the edge of the lot. Air heavy, damp, smelling faintly of asphalt and rain. Acceptance followed slowly. I touched the photograph again. My own eyes staring back, patient, insistent. The fog outside mirrored the one in the photo. I felt the quiet fear settle. Not sudden, not violent, soft, patient, the understanding that some things do not change. I exhaled slowly, breath fogging against my cheeks. The hum of fluorescent lights softened. The photograph warm against my fingers, yet cold somehow, holding decades of quiet waiting. I stepped away from the bulletin board. Boots pressed softly against wet linoleum. Fog pressed closer at the windows. The lot beyond flickering pale and endless. And in that silence, I knew the rest stop had always been here. Waiting, patient, the fog curling and uncurling. My younger self, waiting still. Fog drifted lazily across the empty lot. The hum of fluorescent lights pressed softly against the air. Cold wind carried the faint smell of asphalt and wet metal. The booth stood at the edge of the lot, glass streaked with rain and grime. Inside, a man sat, still as a shadow. I approached slowly, boots pressing lightly on the damp pavement. The faint rustle of paper, or maybe my own movement, echoed in the quiet. His eyes met mine, perfectly still, no blink, no twitch. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed louder inside the booth. I stepped closer, fingers brushing against the cold metal frame. The air smelled faintly of coffee, old wood, and something darker beneath it. He spoke, words low, measured, riddles that curled in the air and lingered, soft and sticky. Do you remember coming here before? His voice came from the glass, yet his lips did not move. I looked at his reflection. It did not match him. The glass showed a man leaning forward when he sat back, a small, impossible twitch in the jaw that was not his. I swallowed slowly, heart pressing in my chest. The quiet stretched. Footsteps from nowhere pressed softly against the floor. The booth smelled warmer now, paper rustling beneath unseen hands. The hum of fluorescent lights pressed into my ears. I blinked. His eyes stayed open. Time seemed to stretch between us, slow and patient. I tried to respond. Words lodged in my throat. The riddles lingered, winding around the air, curling softly into the shadows. I took a step back, fingers damp against my coat. The fog outside pressed closer, curling around the lot, pushing in like water. He spoke again, same words, same soft rhythm. Do you remember coming here before? The question pressed softly against my mind, not urgent, not loud, but patient, inevitable. I exhaled, air cold, damp, metallic against my tongue. Boots pressed against wet asphalt. Soft footsteps echoed in the distance. The glass reflected the booth, the man inside, and me, but not quite right. I felt unease settle in my chest. Quiet, low, persistent. The hum of the lights pressed against my ears. The fog pressed against my skin. The booth waited. I stepped back slowly. The air smelled faintly of rain and paper. The lot stretched pale and endless under the flickering lights. His eyes followed me, unblinking, patient, and in that silence, I understood. The booth had always been here. The man had always been waiting. The lot, endless, quiet, watching. Fog rolled along the edges of the highway. White lines stretched ahead, slick with rain. The air smelled damp of tar, cold asphalt, and distant pines. I gripped the wheel lightly. Rubber pressed softly against wet pavement. The hum of the tires blended with the whisper of wind through the mist. At first, it was faint, soft, almost imperceptible. A gentle rustling, like paper brushing together. Then the lines beneath me seemed to move, subtle, undulating, shifting, whispers rising from the road itself. I leaned closer, the smell of rain stronger, sharper. The wind pressing against the car, curling around my coat. The whispers forming words, prayers warning soft and urgent. Do not stop. Do not look back. The road repeated itself, white lines merging, stretching, twisting into sentences. I blinked. The fog thickened, each breath heavy, damp, cold. The hum of the tires pressed into my ears like a pulse. I slowed slightly, but the whispers followed, patient, insistent. Soft pleas wrapped around the curvature of the lines. The words almost tangible beneath my fingers on the wheel. A chill pressed along my spine. The air smelled faintly of wet pine and asphalt. with something older, metallic beneath it. The lines beneath me seemed alive, shifting under the tires, vibrating faintly. I exhaled slowly, air visible, curling against the windshield. The whispers became layered, soft, distant cries woven with the prayers, words overlapping, folding into one another. I pressed forward. The white lines ahead pulsed gently beneath the car, sentences forming and dissolving like fog, warnings, names, hints of past travelers long vanished, speaking to the asphalt. The hum of the tires became a rhythm. Time stretched then, each word from the road pressing into my mind, soft, urgent, insistent. I glanced in the rear view. Fog rolled in, thick and impenetrable. No lights, no shapes, just the whispering white lines ahead. The fear settled quietly, not loud, not sudden, soft, persistent, curling around my chest, around my throat. I pressed the wheel forward. The lines pulsed. The whispers rose and fell, warnings merging with prayers. I exhaled again. Fog pressed close, cool and damp against the skin. The hum of tires, the road beneath me, the whispering lines, all patient, endless. And in that quiet, I understood the highway had always been here, watching, waiting, speaking. Its voice carried on the white lines, soft, impossible, eternal. Fog curled along the edges of the highway. The horizon glowed pale and washed, distant lights bending through mist. The air smelled damp of asphalt, wet leaves, and cold iron. I slowed the car. Tires pressed softly against the wet pavement. A low hum of the engine, steady, almost comforting. Then I saw it, a figure, far ahead, standing beside the road, hand raised in a slow wave. The silhouette was familiar, same shape, same stance. Even the car parked beside it mirrored mine. I blinked, breath fogging the windshield. The hum of tires beneath me felt sharper, more present. I waved back, softly, unsure. The figure hesitated, then moved. Its wave was slower than mine. Deliberate, studying, learning. Shadows stretched unnaturally along its form, curling against the fog. The air smelled of wet pine metal and something older, decayed, lingering beneath it. I could hear soft rustling leaves, fabric, something moving with intent. I exhaled, hands tight on the wheel. My heartbeat pressed against my ribs, loud in the quiet. The figure's wave slowed further, exaggerated, mirroring me in impossible ways. I blinked again, its head tilted, studying me, no face visible in the shadow, only the silhouette's shape familiar, uncomfortably familiar. The hum of the tires merged with the soft whisper of the fog. Breath pressed cold against my neck. The air felt heavy, patient. I waved again, slower this time, more careful. The figure responded, slightly delayed, as if processing my motion, mimicking, learning. A shiver ran through my spine. The fog pressed closer. Shadows deepened around the car, around the figure, around the space between us. I tried to focus on the horizon. Lights blurred, pale and diffused. The figure's wave persisted, imperfectly precise, mechanical, alive. The air tasted faintly metallic. The tires hummed, the fog whispered. The silhouette mirrored every movement, every hesitation. I felt small, alone, watched. I exhaled slowly, fingers damp against the wheel. The figure's wave slowed further, now deliberately lagging, echoing my motions in soft, wrong time. I realized then it was not simply mirroring. It was learning, observing. Fog thickened. The road ahead curved into whiteness. Soft rustling pressed against the car. Breath pressed cold along my neck and shoulders. I took a deep breath. The silhouette still waved. Slower, patient, perfect. And in that quiet, I understood. I was no longer the only one here. The highway held more than fog, more than light. It held something waiting, watching, learning. The fluorescent lights above flickered, weak and pale. The rest stop was quiet, the hum of the air vents low and distant. The scent of damp tile and bleach lingered in the corners. I walked slowly toward the restroom. The door was taped off with bright yellow stripes, edges curling in the humidity. A soft drip echoed from the gap beneath it, irregular, patient. I paused, The air felt heavier here, colder. Something pressed softly at my chest, a weight I couldn't shake. Drip, 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 each sound sharper against the silence. Then I noticed it, another rhythm, faint beneath the first, a heartbeat, slow, measured, not mine. I leaned closer to the gap. The tape crinkled under my fingers, brittle and damp. The faint smell of rusted metal mingled with bleach. The second heartbeat grew, almost imperceptibly, a soft echo of life, echo of breath. I couldn't tell if it was human, animal, or something else entirely. The tiles beneath my shoes felt slick. Every step left a shallow imprint, cold against the warmth of my soles. Drip, heartbeat, drip, heartbeat. I wanted to look through the gap, but something told me not to. A shadow moved just beyond my vision, flickering along the edges of the door frame. The air vibrated with stillness, heavy and patient. I held my breath. The world narrowed to the tape, the door, the echoes of a second heartbeat. A soft rustle came from inside. Not loud, not urgent, but deliberate. The drip paused, then resumed. I stepped back, fingers brushing the tape, feeling its damp stickiness. Every nerve in my body pulled taut. The light above flickered again. Shadows deepened in the corners. The hum of the vents seemed to echo the heartbeat. Syncopated. In time. I realized then, I was not alone. Had not been, not for a moment. The door stood between me and something waiting, patient. Drip, drip, heartbeat, heartbeat. The rhythm stretched, elongated, as if the room itself were breathing. I drew a slow breath. The tape under my fingertips shivered slightly, though no wind stirred. The shadows leaned closer, long and thin, pressing against the edge of the door. I turned away, stepped soft on the wet tile. The heartbeat lingered in my chest, or maybe it followed me. Drip, drip, echoing behind the door. The rest stop felt empty again. Lights hummed pale and steady, but the weight remained. The shadow behind the taped door had not moved, had not blinked. I left the hallway. The smell of damp tile and bleach clung to my clothes. The echo of a second heartbeat whispered in the quiet, and though the door read closed for cleaning, I knew it was something else entirely. Waiting, patient, still. The parking lot ended abruptly. Beyond it, an old playground sat under the pale wash of streetlights. The swings moved slowly back and forth, though the air was still. The smell of damp grass mixed with rusted metal. I stepped closer. Soft gravel crunched beneath my shoes. One swing shifted more than the others, a hollow rhythm that felt deliberate. A small recorder rested on the seat, tape fraying at the edges. A sound came from it. Laughter, backward, distorted, curling into itself. I leaned down, listening. The sound tickled my ears, cold and thin, like the wind through a chain-link fence. I reached out to touch the swing. The metal was cold, wet with condensation. The laughter continued, looping in strange, almost familiar tones. The other swings moved slowly in empty arcs. Shadows from the playground equipment stretched long and thin across the gravel. The slide glimmered faintly in the pale light, edges slick. I stepped onto the grass. Each blade pressed damp against my fingers. The air tasted faintly of iron and winter leaves. The laughter shifted, then paused. I realized the swings were synchronized with my own breathing. In, out, sway, pause, sway. I wanted to leave, but the playground seemed to hold me in place. A memory I could not name, yet I felt its shape pressing at my chest. The air vibrated with soft static. I could hear faint whispers under the recorder's loops. Soft, broken fragments of voices, like children calling, fading before words formed. A swing squeaked sharply. I flinched. The shadows deepened, though no clouds moved overhead. The smell of wet metal grew stronger, mingled now with something sweet, almost like candy left too long in a bag. I knelt to touch the gravel near the swings. It was cold, unyielding, yet it hummed softly beneath my fingers. I turned my gaze upward. The playground towered over me, quiet but watching. The laughter began again, slower this time, drawing out a hollow ache I could not name. The swings moved just enough to catch my eye, small arcs like the sway of a lullaby. I noticed marks in the dirt, small footprints circling each swing. Though I was alone, a breeze or something like it brushed past my neck. No leaves stirred. No wind rippled through the grass. I stepped back toward the lot. The recorder's laughter followed me, backward and haunting. Each swing echoed the sound, soft metal against the night. I paused at the edge of the playground. The swings continued their slow rhythm. The laughter folded into silence. The lights of the lot shivered faintly in the distance. I left the gravel, leaving the playground swaying under the pale, patient night. And though I did not look back, I could feel the echoes trailing behind me, a hollow memory pressed against my chest. The fog rolled in thick, a pale sheet across the asphalt. Headlights cut weakly through it, spilling into nothing. The air smelled damp, metallic, and still. I started the car. The engine hummed low, steady. Every turn of the wheel pressed soft gravel under tired tires. The radio crackled, a familiar static, faint at first, weaving between a mechanical hum. Then it grew louder, clearer, threading into a single note. I knew it, the same tune I had heard at the beginning, a hum buried in static, pressing at my skull. The fog pressed closer against the windows. Breath fogged the glass. I wiped it, feeling damp chill on my fingers. The tune shifted slightly, weaving into words I could not fully hear. Fragments of phrases, whispers carried in the hum. It felt alive, tracing the road behind me. I tried to change the station. Buttons clicked under my fingers. The static followed. Every station carried a trace of it, a low murmur beneath the noise. The headlights barely reached the lines painted on the road. They shimmered in the fog. Each white stripe hummed back, vibrating faintly against the tires. A realization struck me. The sound had been following me, always. Every rest stop, every parking lot, every loop of fog. The hum deepened. I pressed my hands to the steering wheel. Cold metal burned through the fog's chill. I could feel the vibrations in the wheel, in the pedals, under my seat. The road stretched endlessly. Each marker faded into the gray. I blinked. The fog did not recede. The tune did not stop. A shadow appeared in the mist. Or was it the fog forming itself into something recognizably human? It lingered just beyond the reach of the headlights. I held my breath. It did not move when I moved. I tried to turn around. The wheels responded sluggishly, sticky. Static wrapped the car, filling the cabin with its low, vibrating pulse. Memories flitted at the edge of my mind. Places I had passed, faces and windows. Laughter, reversed, faded into the hum. I slowed. The fog thickened. The hum matched the rhythm of my heart. In, out, in, out. The car shivered, as if uncertain of its own motion. Breath caught in my throat. I was alone, and yet the sound pressed, almost familiar. The windshield fog again. My hand traced a glass, feeling the cold, wet smoothness. Static whispered in a way that pressed against memory, against recognition. I realized it was a loop. The fog, the hum, the road. It had never left. I stopped. The engine idled, but the world outside held its silence. The hum continued, soft, insistent, impossibly close. I opened the door. Cold air wrapped around me, wet against my skin. The fog swallowed the car, the road, the radio. I stepped forward. The hum pulsed underfoot, under hands, under breath. It was inside me now, a rhythm I could not escape. The fog moved like water. Shadows shifted, almost recognizable shapes. The tune lingered, vibrating through everything I touched, everything I breathed. I did not look back. The road stretched endlessly into white. The hum followed, and I walked into it, alone. The night was heavy. Streetlights flickered pale, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and wet asphalt. I parked beside a pump, the hose dangling like a forgotten limb. The screen glowed. Numbers scrolled upward, or so I thought. Then they flipped. Negative, minus signs crawling across the display. The fuel flowed, but the tank read less and less. A slow, impossible drain. I pressed the handle down harder. The hose resisted, almost alive. A hum vibrated to the metal, low and insistent. My hands tingled where they touched it. The air thickened around me. Breath felt heavy in my chest. The wind, if there was any, carried nothing, just a subtle rustle of plastic signs shivering in place. I tried to step back. The ground felt sticky, like the asphalt had thickened overnight. My shoes sank slightly into the tar, leaving shallow impressions that filled as quickly as they appeared. Numbers ticked backward faster, negative values spiraling into the hundreds, then thousands. I could see my reflection in the pump's glossy surface. Pale, sweat-lined, hands trembling. I let go of the handle. It lifted itself slightly, then pressed down again, stubborn, unyielding. A low vibration hummed through my spine. The air pressed in, thick and metallic, carrying the taste of iron and fear. I coughed. It sounded loud in the silence, echoing off empty concrete walls. Every attempt to stop, it made the pump pulse harder. The hum deepened, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I touched the screen. Cold, unnervingly smooth. The numbers moved under my fingers, slithering backward as if alive. The light from the display cast shadows that didn't match their source. Thin, sharp, clawing at the edges of vision. A sudden gust, or the illusion of one, ruffled the papers on the ground. The air seemed to thicken even more. I could feel it pressing on my lungs, on my skin, on my eyes. My fingers itched where the hose touched them. I stepped back again. The pump continued. Numbers descending faster now, the hum joining the static of a faint radio far away. A sense of inevitability pressed against my chest. I blinked. The negative numbers paused, then accelerated. Each breath drew in a heaviness. Each exhale was swallowed. I could almost hear my own heartbeat in the thick air. And another heartbeat, slightly behind mine, slower, echoing. I looked around. The rest of the station was empty. Fog crept low across the asphalt, curling like fingers around tires. Streetlights shimmered in pale halos. The hum pulsed in the fog, wrapping everything, vibrating under skin and bone. I tried to pull the hose free. It resisted. The metal handle burned against my palm. The air grew heavier, pressing, subtle but insistent, like water filling a jar too fast. I let go. The numbers continued to fall, negative, impossible. The hum matched the numbers now, descending in pitch with them. I could not stop it. No one could stop it. The fog thickened, muffling the distant road. I stepped back into the shadow of the car. The pump glowed coldly, silently mocking. A deep stillness followed the hum, a quiet that felt alive. I did not touch it again. I could not. The air weighed on my chest. The numbers kept moving. The pump kept draining. And I stood there alone, the fog curling around my legs, the hum vibrating through the soles of my shoes. Silent, waiting. Dawn came soft. Pale light spilled across the lot, stretching long shadows between the pumps. The air smelled faintly of burnt coffee and early dew. Everything looked normal. The vending lights blinked gently. Trash cans sat at the corners, lids closed as if nothing had happened. I walked slowly. The asphalt felt different under my shoes. Denser, quieter, like it had settled while I wasn't looking. A soft rustle came from the bushes near the sign. Not wind, something moving just beneath the surface. I paused, listening. The neon from the vending machines hummed low, uneven. The sound wasn't wrong. Exactly, but it didn't belong. A faint electric tang lingered in my nostrils. I touched a metal pole near the pumps. Cold, smooth, but the texture wasn't familiar. Like a memory of cold, not the real thing. A breeze shifted a paper cup. It spun once and stopped. I noticed a shadow it cast, thin, too sharp, as if carved from something solid. It didn't match the soft light of dawn. The air carried a faint hum. Not mechanical, not like the radio, just there, layered under the morning, subtle but persistent. I walked toward the main building. Every step felt heavier, though the ground appeared solid. The windows reflected me too clearly, and yet I wasn't sure it was me. The trash cans again. They seemed slightly larger, slightly smaller. Depending on the corner of my eye, their metal rims shimmered pale blue for a heartbeat, then returned to ordinary gray. I glanced at the pumps. Numbers froze in mid-display. The handles sat perfectly, not moving, but I could feel a faint vibration beneath the soles of my shoes. I reached for the door to the restroom. It was cold to the touch. I hesitated, breathing in the scent of cleaner and fog. It was familiar, and yet not mine. I stepped back. The pavement looked dry now, though I could swear it had been damp earlier. The cracks were sharper, straighter, unnaturally precise. A car passed on the highway beyond the lot, its engine low and muffled, distant. Even its movement felt measured, deliberate. I stood alone, listening. The soft footsteps of birds in the eaves, the slight rustle of wind through the small trees. Every sound slightly off. The vending lights blinked again. The glow didn't reach all the way. Edges of the lot lingered in a thin shadow. A shadow that shifted as I moved, never quite matching my path. I took a deep breath. The fog had lifted, but not completely. It lingered at the edges, pale and teasing, like a memory of night. I touched the edge of a trash can. Cold, smooth. I let my hand linger, felt the quiet hum of my fingers. I walked slowly toward my car. The lot stretched in ways it hadn't before. The air seemed to follow, settling into corners, brushing my cheeks. I felt the world remade. I sat in the driver's seat. The engine was still. The doors closed easily. And yet, the weight of the lot pressed on me, soft but undeniable. I looked at the pumps one last time. Numbers frozen. Handles still. Vending lights flickering faintly. The morning was ordinary, and not. I exhaled slow, accepted the subtle wrongness. The road waited, and I drove forward. Fog lingered low across the lot. The air tasted faintly of rain and asphalt. My fingers brushed the steering wheel, cold, damp. The neon lights above the pumps flickered once. Soft, hesitant, just like they had when I first arrived. I blinked. The glow vanished. The hum left a thin trace in my ears. I breathed slowly. Morning had not yet arrived. The sky was pale gray, empty of warmth. Then it returned, a flicker, inside the car. I froze. The dashboard lit with the same neon blue. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing. The hum came with it, soft, insistent, like a memory I couldn't name, layered on the quiet of dawn. I glanced at my reflection in the rear view mirror. The light glimmered off my eyes, off the edges of my face. But something else moved behind me. The seat felt colder than it should. The leather pressed against my back, though nothing had changed. The faint scent of ozone curled along my hair. I reached slowly toward the glow. The air thinned as I approached. Each inch closer made the car feel larger, stretching beyond its frame. The radio lay silent, yet a soft static vibrated through the speakers. The neon flicker inside matched the pulse, a heartbeat in rhythm with mine. I tried to look away, but the light traced the lines of my hands, outlined every finger, every crease. The shadow it cast was different. It didn't move like mine should. The fog pressed against the windows, soft, almost loving, then suffocating. I could hear it brush the glass, sighing, a whisper of leaves, a hum of engines long gone. I exhaled. The light grew stronger. The neon inside glowed across the dashboard, across the rear view. It touched the mirrors, the ceiling, the edges of the seats. I dared to breathe. The scent of metal and wet pavement clung to my skin. Every surface shimmered slightly, unreal, as if redrawn. Then I saw it clearly. The first flicker had drawn me here, and now it came from inside, from my own car. I pressed my hands to the dash. The glow responded, rippling. The hum deepened, resonating in my chest. The fog outside seemed to hold its breath. The engine light blinked. A single pulse, and then another. It mirrored the neon's rhythm. I realized then I had never left the glow. It had always followed. I leaned back slowly. The air thickened with silence. Heavy, expectant. The car smelled faintly of burnt rubber and metal. I could feel the space between the seats expand. The glow wrapped around me. Not harsh, not warm, just present, waiting. I tried the door handle. Locked, not by my hands, not by the lock I knew. I let my head fall against the seat. The neon pulse filled the interior. The hum vibrated through my bones. And then nothing. No fog, no breeze, no morning. Just the light, the hum, and the quiet realization. I had been drawn here. I would always be drawn. And the first light would always come back.